Hey y'all, my name is Jessica, and in this second video segment, I will be discussing the societal implications of what is appropriate and inappropriate sexuality. Oh yeah, I'm going to be talking about sex. It really is an interesting topic once you can move past the giggles and the laughter and really start to understand the deep-seated, no pun intended, historical and religious expectations that presently surround sex, and how our country perpetuated and created the sexual expectations of individuals. Starting out, I think it's important to begin with a little history lesson. Historically speaking, sex was for one main purpose, and this purpose was to procreate and to carry on your family namesake by having children. Yes, before the mainstream introduction of homosexual relationships, the sanctity of marriage was based around one single man and one single woman partaking in lawfully indoctrinated vows that, for the purity of the marriage and the namesake, lasted until death did they part. Marriage opened up the opportunity for lawful sexual intercourse. Yes, you heard me correctly. Lawful sexual intercourse. At one point in history, sex outside of marriage was actually deemed as immoral and illegal act and was punishable by jail. Another area of sexual intercourse was conceiving and giving birth to a child out of wedlock, meaning that a woman got pregnant by a man who she was not married to and thus resulted in a baby, and the woman and the man were not married. That also was illegal and definitely highly frowned upon. Currently, today, it's not necessarily the best situation either, but it's becoming a little bit more tolerated. Currently, sexual intercourse is not punishable by incarceration, not in the United States at least. It's not widely accepted as an openly discussed and acted upon topic. There are still taboo implications and religious standards that cloud one's expectations and feelings about sex. Society has these hold over us, these invisible strings that are tightened and sometimes loosened, but mainly tightened every now and again, because the religious affiliations that our country is based upon, the church and the doctrine that's taught. The Bible, for example, discusses the holiness of matrimony and familial expansion, being married and having children. Catholics have a strong belief in not utilizing birth control or birth control methods because children are a gift from God and should be willingly accepted. All of this is giving something or someone, a higher power, a hold and a stronger power over our happiness, over our own wants and desires, power over our body, over our own enjoyment, over our own sexuality. Sex for pleasure, not for procreation, is a term that is slowly gaining notoriety, but is continuously met with much opposition. There are situations that sexual intercourse is not widely accepted, and rightfully so, but to each their own. For instance, sex workers, people who are paid to partake in sexual acts with other people and receive monetary compensation for their work. The term sex worker can and typically does include a prostitute, the term a call girl, or an escort. But to be honest, this line of work, it does not just embody females. Males are certainly part of this mentality also. They're involved in this line of work as well. It's just not as often discussed. Unfortunately, when we say the phrase sex worker, it's imagined, or maybe it conjures up what embodies a female. Maybe this is the picture that is painted in your head. This is because society, and this includes every manifestation of consumerism, it's implicated that the female body is the spokesperson for sex workers. Television shows are the absolute epitome of exemplifying and implicating women into this category. They typically will display women in these lines of work and not as often males in this personification. I know I mentioned categories in my last video, the phrase categories, the term categories, but it definitely bears repeating. Categories are the easiest way for our brains to comprehend information. Once this information is categorized, we see it, we hear it, we smell it, we put it into some part of our brain. Once that information, is processed in our brain, it is further broken down into specific labels, even smaller categories, but these categories have specific labels. And the labels are absolutely cringeworthy. They don't define or embody the person, but we automatically justify it because it makes sense. And the label sticks with us. It sticks in the category in our head, but it also sticks to the individual that's attached to, that the category that we put the person in our brain. It's automatically attached to them, and it's further damaging, absolutely damaging. Tangent. Back to sexuality in our society. As I mentioned before, talking about labels and talking about categories, I was discussing sex workers and how they're met with opposition. This could be because their work is not regulated as mainstream or acknowledged by society. Could also be because government cannot control or regulate the amount of money that is invested or obtained by these workers. This line of employment, and yes, it is extremely controversial and punishable by incarceration, should be left up to the individual, though. It's their body. It's not anybody else's. They should be able to do with it as they please, of course, as long as it is not inflicting physical, emotional, or mental harm on anybody else. Of course, it's instilling and inflicting in themselves mental and physical harm because there is that internal struggle of good and evil. But it should be left up to them. It should be left up to their own reasoning as to why they would choose that line of work or that sexual pleasure or that desire that they choose to act upon. Another area of sexuality that bears discussion is the sexuality of disabled people. Now, some people believe that having a disability makes an individual less of a human. But in all actuality, I personally believe that it makes them more of a human being. They have to endure a lot. They live through a lot. They experience a lot. Typically, those situations are not something that anybody else would experience. It makes them emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically stronger. Believing that the disability defines the character or the person further pushes stigmatization and objectification through the loops of society. People sometimes get this notion that they are something to accomplish, something to, take hold of, that the disability of this person is something that needs to be handled. They're a human being. They're just like everybody else, except maybe, something is a little bit different than them, but they're still breathing, they're still living, they're still experiencing life, and they sure as heck deserve to be able to do so on their own accord. But believe it or not, no matter the society and societal holds that history has instilled in us, that the church has instilled in us, we're sexual beings. Human beings are sexual beings. We have innate needs and urges and desires, no matter the orientation, heterosexual or homosexual, a sex worker or a disabled individual, somebody that goes to church, somebody that doesn't go to church, somebody that's religious, somebody that's not religious. A much better way to refer to these are cardinal desires or lustful desires, are needs that are instilled in us, that we, because of our bodily chemistry. Nonetheless, we all have them. We've been molded and shaped into the societal roles of what constitute proper and improper sexuality. Men, for example, they're to be masculine, to take charge, that sort of embodiment. Now, sometimes to the point of possibly a forceful mentality, certainly not a good characteristic. Women are to be more whimsical and submissive, that sort of embodiment. Sometimes even resembling take me here, I'm ready for you, a damsel in distress personification. No matter how we spin it or how much fluff or frilly words that we add to it, women and subversive sexuality are not afforded the same privileges to be open and communicative as a male is. The recursive double standard, if I do say so myself, society almost mandates that women remain hush-hush about their sexuality and their enjoyment of it. All the while, men are able to openly communicate about their wants, their needs, and their desires. As I mentioned before, sex workers are not able to discuss this information either because they have that fear of possibly, getting in trouble because it's unlawful for them to partake in discussion of this, and not being able to discuss it makes it really secretive. But they are they're human beings, and they need an outlet. They need to be able to talk about it, just like anybody else needs to be able to express their feelings. We need a safe and welcoming environment for this mentality in order to flourish, but also so that people can start to understand it further, so that we can get the information that we need to in order to be able to comprehend it and explain it easier. But most importantly, it's, hello society, here we are. Sexuality is within all of us. It's doesn't discriminate. It doesn't reject. It's, chemistry. It's inside of every single person, acting upon our desires, even for pleasure. It's healthy. There's comfort in understanding and loving your physical body. Those who love who they are produce a sense of self that is stable, and honestly, it shows how much they care about themselves, how they, handle others, how they conduct themselves, how they talk to people, how they walk down the street. It shows when somebody's confident in it, and it shows. And without being able to express your feelings, your wants, your needs, your desires within a relationship, within a marriage, without the confines of a relationship, without the confines of a marriage, you need to be able to do that, to be able to be true to who you are. And without being able to do that, you're not able to do that. You're definitely putting yourself at a disservice. If you think about this for a second, society does not mandate that we starve people because they gain pleasure from eating food. We don't remove comfortable clothing because it makes someone physically feel good. But then again, we remove the ability to enjoy and discuss sexuality and the different concepts that surround sexuality. For that matter, we need to be able to further discuss these categories. We need to stop forcing people to be a part of a specific label, to mandate who can and who cannot be sexual, or who can or cannot be able to attain that, to enjoy it, to live in that moment. It's not society's personal choice. It's each individual's personal choice. And we should collectively and individually build our own appropriate definition of sexuality, whether or not it's what society has deemed to be appropriate or inappropriate. Because what's appropriate in my eyes isn't going to be appropriate in somebody else's eyes. But that's the joy of living in a society, that we're able to sometimes express it. But in the area of sexuality, we all need to be able to express it and to be able to define it and interpret it and enjoy it our own ways. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.